Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Behind the Story. I'm Eli Sherman and I'm joined by my co-host, 12 News anchor, Kim Kalunian. Our guest this week is Dan Medeiros of the Fall River Herald News. Dan, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Hey, thank you.
So this week we're talking about the story of the week, and it happened in your backyard, basically. We're talking about the deadly fire that happened in Fall River at the assisted living facility, the Gabriel House. And it claimed 9 lives, injured many more. People are still in the hospital as of our taping on Wednesday. And, Dan, we wanted to have you on, obviously, because there's been a lot of coverage, great coverage happening all the way up to Boston and down into Providence. But this is really your hometown. This is your home turf as the Fall River Herald reporter, longtime reporter. And I'm just wondering if you could maybe bring us back to when you heard about this fire happening. When were you notified about it, and then how you and your team sort of reacted?
Right. So when it occurred, we heard about it through someone who has a member of their family in the fire service, not in Fall River, but elsewhere. And so when you're in the fire service, it seems like it's a large family. So, word spreads very quickly. So when it happened, we were notified pretty early on that this was going to be something big. We had people show up. I believe it was, early in the morning or late at night. I heard about it only the next morning. But as soon as, I got the word, it was, we have to get going, all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. This is what we're doing for the foreseeable future. So I immediately, did what I had to do, threw clothes on, got all my stuff, and headed down to the fire scene to figure out what exactly had happened.
You clear the decks. I mean,
Yes.
This is what we're going to be focusing on
Right.
as an organization.
Right. I mean, it was clear that this was not just your sort of, I hate to use the term typical fire, but this was a catastrophe. This was a calamity that was going to affect a lot of people for a very long time. So it was the kind of thing that, we all, not just myself and the other reporters on staff, but other people at Gannett, we all got together and were like, let's all take a piece of this and all start working together to try to tackle this as best we could.
And Gannett, of course, is the owner of the Fall River Herald News. I should mention.
Yeah, I think when the initial calls for this came in, it was around 9:30 on a Sunday night. And as people might imagine, newsrooms are not fully staffed on Sundays, especially that late at night. So I imagine there was a bit of a scramble to get everyone together and get everyone on the same page. Can you talk me through, Dan, when you get there on Monday morning and you get to the scene, what are some of the first things you do as a reporter at the scene of, like you said, a calamity like this?
Well, the first thing I did was try to seek out the fire chief, who, being a hometown boy, I've known since 6th grade.
Wow.
So I recognize him. So my first thing to do was find out where he is and just figure out what happened, what is he doing now, and what will he be doing in the future, immediately. Just trying to establish a baseline of what's occurred and what will be occurring and what had just happened. I believe when I got there, it was a few minutes after the fire department had just rescued the medical records, which were all paper, from the building, and he was quite thrilled that they were able to do that, because without those medical records, you have untold number of people who they have medications that they can't remember often. They have conditions that are very difficult to treat, and so it was that was a huge piece, actually. Just getting these boxes of documents, these files, was quite a feat for the Fall River Fire Department, and they're right to be proud of it, because without that, it would have been even worse. This terrible situation would have been even worse, trying to scramble to find out, medical issues for however many dozen people.
Right.
Now, we've been, talking, as you have, to a lot of victims and people who were able to get out. As I mentioned earlier, of course, this claimed the lives of 9 people, and many more were in the hospital. We have a little bit of sound that we want to play from one of the residents there who was able to get out, and I'd like you to take a listen here.
And the smoke just hit me back. It was so thick. And I was right near the exit door, and I should have been able to get out, but I couldn't. The smoke was too heavy. And then the sprinkler system sprinkled hot water on me. And there was no way to get out. I tried. So I went into the bathroom, and the smoke was heavy in there. And I opened the window, and I yelled, "Help, help, help." And the fireman came up the ladder, broke the window, and got me out and carried me down the ladder. I thought I was dead. I really thought I was going to meet my maker.
It's just devastating hearing all of these firsthand accounts. And I spoke with some fire personnel who had been there on Sunday night, and they said when they got there, it was just flames blocking the front door, and you had people hanging out of smoke-filled windows, just begging for someone to come and help them. What are some of the stories that you've heard from people who are on the ground? And I mean, what has this been like for Fall River to deal with as a community?
Well, some of the stories that I've heard from people, I can't repeat because they asked to not go on the record.
Oh, wow.
And that's one of those things I would, I'd rather,
Yeah, you don't want to break their trust, and it's such a sensitive situation.
Right. One thing I and all the people I've been working with, we've been very careful to deal with this extremely sensitively.
Yeah.
Because this is something that the city will feel for a very long time.
Sure.
I mean, people like that, these are my neighbors. I live there. I own property there. I've always lived in Fall River.
Yeah.
I've always worked in Fall River. Some of the people that I work with have always lived and worked in Fall River. So, when we see people like that, it's difficult. You know what I mean? Other people that I spoke with, who I stories I can repeat. They described just thick black smoke, not being able to see their hands in front of their faces, leaving with basically nothing, having to leave everything, behind them. I know there were 2 people who later had to be reunited with the ashes of their relatives that they had to leave behind. There was the Reverend Rob Nenkovich of in Fall River. He helped sort of reunite some people with their ashes. I believe one was a daughter, one was a mother. It was just heartbreaking. I think one of the biggest challenges of reporting the story is basically trying to approach it all with an incredible amount of sensitivity and compassion and grace, for basically everybody involved. Firefighters, survivors, family of survivors, everybody.
Yeah, and you and I were texting a little bit too, Dan, and that is why it's so important to have local reporters in the communities that they're covering, because they do bring that context of understanding exactly how big news events are affecting their community, because they live there. I mean, you can't get that from, outside news organizations that swoop into a community for the big events and cover them, because they don't have that institutional knowledge. We have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will talk a little bit about a rift that has been occurring between the Firefighters Union and the mayor's office. Stick with us. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Story. I'm Eli Sherman, joined by my co-host Kim Kalunian, and this week we're talking with Dan Medeiros of the Fall River Herald News. Dan, I want to talk about the firefighters in a second, but we left off there talking about the importance of local news, having local reporters, and just a daily paper of record came in valuable resource to us as we were trying to figure out, coming in, what is this building? Where, what is the history of it? And I know that you had also found it, but our colleague, Ted Nisi, quickly went to the archives of the Herald News, and he found this let me see, I got to get the year right, 64 newspaper clipping of the opening of the original facility that this long-term, this assisted living facility now exists inside of. It was billed as Fall River's only motel at the time, opened as the Redwood Hotel. Is that what it was called?
Redwood Motel.
Motel.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wonder, as you're obviously you have so much institutional knowledge of Fall River, but how much do you go to the morgue is what we used to call it, right? Where the old clippings of where things were kept to help inform your reporting.
I'm there every day. Most of the time it's just for fun too. I can fall into rabbit holes. In fact, this one example, I shared it with my colleagues, and I told them, please, someone take this away from me, because if I let myself go, I will research this for the next 3 days. I can't do that. I can't spare the time. But yeah, that's invaluable. I go back to it all the time, because I think when you know where something came from, then you know where it is now, really. That explains a lot about the fire, come to think of it, is because it was an old building. It was built in 1964, and it may not be up to code necessarily. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to speak out of turn, but it wasn't designed as an assisted living facility.
Yeah. Right.
It was designed as a motel to 1964 standards. It may not necessarily be up to 2025 assisted living facility standards. So having that little bit of information may help understand what is going on now. But the archives, I love them. They're wonderful.
You're in good company with your love for history, because we were, as viewers of the show will know that Kim is often going down nostalgia lane
big time,
in all of the things that she likes to read. Okay, I want to shift gears now to the Firefighters Union and Mayor Paul Coogan's office, because quickly, there's an awful saying of never let a catastrophe pass you by or something, never lose an opportunity to make a point out of it. And quickly we saw the Firefighters Union come out and say essentially that if they had more manpower, that they could have saved more lives. And it was a really sort of stark comment. I want to play a little bit of sound from both them and then a response from the chief, who of course is a part of Coogan's administration. Take a listen.
Staff properly up to national standards, there would have been 8 more firefighters effecting rescues here last night. There's no doubt that would have made a difference in the amount of people that we lost to this terrible fire last night. Lives would have been saved if the Fall River Fire Department was adequately staffed.
I don't know if it would have saved lives. That's speculation. The fact of the matter, the world that I live in with facts, is absolutely. If you gave me 8 more firefighters on that scene, we're throwing more ladders. We're effecting more rescues more efficiently. That's a fact. I don't know if lives could have been saved or would have changed the incident at all. I'm focusing my firefighters on the 50+ lives that were saved at that incident based on their heroic efforts. And that's what I need to focus on for my mental health and their mental health to get through this.
So obviously, a differing of opinion there, or, at least some butting heads over what happened and why. And I'm wondering, this gets back to the institutional knowledge. From the outside looking in, you could say, well, this is just a flashpoint moment. But has there been sort of an undertone of frustration from the fire department over manpower in the past, or is this just a sudden new issue that's coming to light because of this tragedy?
This is not new. They've been, I hate to say sounding the alarm, but they've just been worried that they've been understaffed for quite a while, for at least a decade that I can remember or more. That being said, I think the narrative of union versus management in this case isn't I think it tends to be a little simplistic, because as far as my awareness based on my conversations with the chief, conversations with people in the union, they're pretty friendly. So they, I think the thing to remember is a firefighter friend of mine told me this once, is that they're not playing tug of war. They're both on the same side of the rope. So, as long as they end up pulling together, they'll get to where they want to get to where they need to get to. It's just that, you do have to understand that, like, people have different immediate priorities that they have to resolve. The union has their immediate responsibilities that they're worried about. The chief has his immediate responsibilities that he has to worry about. And in the end, both of them want the same thing. They want a safe Fall River. They want everybody to go to bed at night and wake up in the morning happy and healthy. And they'll figure it out. It's just, I have heard in the public sphere people concerned that maybe this was a bit soon. I can't really speak to that at all. I know the mayor has also expressed, like, perhaps it was too soon, but again, he's also willing to have that conversation too, based on, again, what he has said and his statements that he's made. I think going back to the compassion thing and looking at this whole situation with grace and understanding that everybody has been through a horrible situation, one thing that we have to remember is that these people are all hurt.
Yeah.
Both the firefighters and the chief, like, they are in pain right now. In fact, just came from a press conference with Chief Bacon, where he wept openly about the situation that occurred. He was, like, relaying the heroism of his men. So emotions are very high right now.
Yeah.
And they can talk budgetary concerns and and all that, but really they're all kind of hurting right now, and what I mean to say is essentially that they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
This is just like a temporary thing, but again, like I said, they're all pulling for the same thing. They really just want a very safe city.
Yeah, and maybe you just answered it in sort of what you were describing, but I'm wondering, and I should also mention this is a very fluid situation. We're expecting another press conference imminently as we're taping this on a Wednesday
between
afternoon.
the mayor and the firefighters
That's right.
union, so they might be kumbaya by this point. So,
exactly,
yeah.
But when we have a massive story like this that we're covering, it's made up of so many moving parts and different things. Like you mentioned, everyone is hurting. You've got the victims, you've got the survivors, you've got the first responders, you've got the building, the owner, the history of it all. For you, when you take a step back, and if you think, maybe 5 years down the road, what's really going to stick with you from what we've experienced over the past few days?
And I have to hold you to 30 seconds on that answer. So
Wow, sorry. Teed up a tough question with not a lot of time.
How do I sum up the future? This is already a historic fire. In fact, I just shared with the many members of my team who I'm working with that there's already a Wikipedia page about this fire.
Wow.
This is something that is, you hope, only limited to a once in a generation kind of event. You hope that you never see this kind of thing again. It's going to be one of those things that, will there be laws that get changed because of this? Who knows? I know the fire chief he's expressed concern about the number of portable AC units that were in the windows. Is that something that will factor into future legislation? Who knows? I really can't speculate too much about where this might lead in the future, but the idea that this might lead to some reforms in the future, who knows, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have to take another quick break. And everybody should go to the Herald News website and pick up the paper. Dan does a great job, as does the rest of his team. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. And I do have to shout out everybody else on my team because I'm only one person among many.
We appreciate that. When we come back, Kim and I will talk about some of the other stories that have been making waves this week in a recurring segment we call The Stories We Wish We Wrote. Stick with us. Welcome back to Behind the Story. I'm Eli Sherman. I'm here with my co-host, Kim Kalunian, and we're now going to be talking about some of the stories that caught our eye over the past week in a recurring segment we call The Stories We Wish We Wrote. Kim, let's start with you. What stories grabbed your eye this week?
Okay, so I'm going to shout out Nancy Lavin at the Rhode Island Courant. She's a fabulous reporter.
Nancy's great.
She is great. We're big friends with Nancy here at Channel 12. But this particular headline is sewage contaminated water made 60% of RI beaches unsafe for swimming in 2024. We get these closures all the time in the summer. The Rhode Island Department of Health says we're closing this beach to swimming. It happens pretty much every week, if not multiple times a week. Her lead of this story is great. Steven Spielberg never made a cult favorite thriller about the dangers of sewage-infested waters, but the amount of fecal matter lurking in the water surpassed federal safety recommendations at least one time in 2024 at nearly 6 in 10 of the state's 66 Rhode Island beaches. I mean, it's maddening.
Eesh.
And she gets to that in her story. Experts are like, we shouldn't still be having this problem in 2025, and yet here we are.
Yeah, giving good fodder to the folks who I don't quite understand, but hate going to the beach in the summer. You know, it's like, well, I'm not going. It's
can't go
covered
in the water.
sewer. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I have to give a shout out to Savannah Dunning at the Newport Daily News. She did a great story. It's called "It's Deplorable. Residents Council Plead to Keep Newport Hospital Birthing Center Open." Now, this is a big issue down in Newport. The Brown Health is talking about potentially cutting or entirely eliminating the birthing center there. And she went to a council meeting, and I know that our Kate Wilkinson has also been doing good coverage on this, but she brought to life this situation where a bunch of mothers had brought their newborns to the meeting. And so you had this backdrop of children crying basically while they're trying to discuss what they should do and imploring Brown Health not to close the birthing center, which of course has been there forever. And so many Newport residents were born there. I'm afraid that we have many more stories we want to shout out.
Go watch Eastside Oakley on Street Stories. It's been a heavy week. Everyone needs a lift.
Yeah, that is a great one.
Great one.
Johnny Villela did a great job with it. You got to go check it out. But that is all the time that we have. I want to thank you for watching us this week. And if you want to go catch these episodes, you can find them on our website at WPRI.com. They'll also be on YouTube. And I'm really excited now you can find this as a podcast, which, Kim, I know you like to listen to these shows as a podcast. So people who prefer getting their news that way can do that. You can also just find it anywhere you can find news. So for Kim Kalunian, I'm Eli Sherman. Thanks for watching Behind the Story.